our lives are not as normal as other people that haven't been abused. The abuse has just changed their attitude to life, changed their attitude to people. But as abuse victim myself, I'm glad that it's all out in the open now, that everybody knows, the whole world knows, and the Catholic Church knows, and they knew all the time, but they can't deny now that they do know, which they have done throughout years and years and years of their silence. And instead of taking action when they knew the abuse was taking place, they could have saved lives upon lives, and the torture for families and children, and just their silence just has ruined more lives that you could think of.
Il fallimento delle autorità ecclesiastiche, vescovi, superiori religiosi, sacerdoti.
The failure of priests and other church superiors to treat the crimes adequately has aroused resentment and remains a source of pain and shame for the Catholic community.
He said he is keeping bishops accountable, he is removing bishops, but I said to him that he may have removed some, but they're being allowed to resign and walk away, so nobody knows that they have been guilty of anything.
You know, you only have to do a few Google searches to see loads of examples of popes and bishops saying, "We didn't know." Like the rest of society, we didn't even understand such things were possible. They did, they lied.
Dublin, August 2018. The first time Pope Francis apologised publicly for the atrocities committed by priests within the Irish Catholic Church. 500,000 of the faithful were expected. Only 130,000 were present, compared to the 1 million who turned out 40 years earlier for John Paul II's arrival. Ireland is one of the largest Catholic communities in Europe. The Church is rooted into the culture of the country, but also into its places of power. Historically, Irish Catholics have placed their trust and political choices in the hands of this all-powerful institution. But since 2002, multiple reports and investigations have shed light on nearly 15,000 cases of sexual abuse committed between 1970 and 1990. The crimes carried out by members of the clergy are not recent. The Pope's apology, however, only came in 2018. Too late for some, his visit remains controversial, as many Irish feel betrayed. The abuse has led to hundreds of suicides. Those that managed to pick up the pieces and face what happened have been named the survivors. Martin Gallagher is one of them. During his childhood, he was sexually abused by Eugene Green, a priest in County Donegal, situated in North West Ireland. Beside him, Martin Ridge, a retired police inspector who was the first to hear his story.
When we were younger and abused, there was nobody to talk to that we could trust. The priests we couldn't go near. They would laugh at us and call us liars. We couldn't tell our parents because they would have to go to the priest and he'd do the same thing to them. We couldn't tell the guards because the guards and the priests and teachers were all big buddies and they stuck together, so we were alone. Martin here came along and started to investigate Eugene Green, and that opened up a big page in our life because it released a lot of pressure, anxiety, depression, all those bad feelings we were building up for years. So just by talking to Martin the first day, that lifted a big load from my shoulders that somebody was going to help me in the end.
In 2008, Martin Ridge published Breaking the Silence, a book recounting the investigation he conducted against Eugene Green concerning allegations of abuse committed between the 1960s and 1990s. He accuses the Catholic Church of choosing not to do anything to stop decades of abuse.
I was glad I was there for them because they educated me too, and they're educating society. Because those people are experts because they know what they're talking about, you see. So again, Martin doesn't need my platitudes, but I'm so grateful, and so is the public, for the likes of Martin, like, you know, and thank God he's getting his own life back on track, you know, and it's not easy. We all have bad days, you know, and it can come back and grab us with fear and contempt and everything, but we have to be careful too, because anger can be self-destructive as well, though maybe it's good to hold on to some of it too, to realise what's going on, you know. I would like to say thank you, Martin, again and again and again.
Martin Gallagher's story is not an isolated case. Allegations of sexual abuse in Ireland concern some 14,500 children for crimes committed over several decades. In Europe, Ireland is one of the countries most affected. The majority of the victims filed claims in Dublin, Ireland's biggest diocese. Between 1975 and 2004, 12 priests were responsible for 2/3 of the allegations. In response, the diocese put into place the Child Safeguarding and Protection Service in 2002, alongside an agency run by the state. Andrew Fagan has been its director and coordinator since 2010.
When it became known that, you know, priests had behaved in an abusive way towards children, that was understood as a problem for the priest, not as a problem for the child or for other children. And for a long time, and it's not as if the diocesan authorities didn't do anything about those situations. They did do things, but they were all about trying to fix up the priest and send him back. And they were not child-centred. You know, they did not prioritise the safety of children. Even though lots of things have changed, I'm not sure that perception has changed. I think that a lot of people still think it's a bit risky to allow your children to be involved in church activities. So I would say that there are a lot of parents who have made a decision to distance themselves from the church.
Frank Rieben is a priest in the parish of Glasnevin, situated in the north of the capital. He put into practice the diocese's directives on safeguarding children. Like all priests in Ireland, he underwent a psychological assessment before starting his post.
If I'm meeting with parents and we're preparing their children for the sacrament, say for confirmation or for communion, we will explain to the parents that we have a child safeguarding policy in action here in our parish. No adult is alone with a child. You know, especially here in our own parish, in our sacristy, no adult is alone. That if children are on the premises, we make sure that they're under the care of those who have been guard vetted and those who have completed the training course. Also, if you have any visiting priests, if you have anybody coming into our sacristy, they are obliged to sign in. And we also, like me, we would ask parents, we'd ask guardians of children not to let their child go to the toilet on their own, that they stay there, that they stay in the public area, just making sure that their child is okay. You know, it's been a horrible chapter in the history of the church and in our lives. So it's a really horrible chapter. You know, so I would be hugely passionate and I would do anything that I possibly could to make sure no child is hurt in this church.
The revelations within the Catholic Church have forced it to repent. 48-year-old Darren Mccavin is another survivor of sexual abuse. His abuser, Tony Walsh, is currently in prison for raping more than 200 children in the suburb of Ballyfermot, where Darren grew up in a violent family.
At the age of 7, when I went to that school, he became the parish priest. So he was adorned. He was also an impersonator of Elvis Presley. So he was in a thing called the All Priest Show, and they went around the country in halls and clubs. They got paid. So everyone thought, isn't he brilliant? Isn't he great? How amazing is he? And then when he talks on the pulpit about his Lord Jesus Christ, Jesus is my friend. I'm going to save you. He went home and told me parents. So the dirty secret was out. I now know you're beating that child and your wife. So now both my parents, which were adults, were vulnerable to the priest and in his pocket, because he knows their dirty secret. So the priest suggested that I take your son out of this environment because you've damaged him. He's acting out and you're beating him more and you don't know how to deal with him. If he comes with me, I can teach him love, and he can serve morning masses, and we'll bring him to lovely places. Take a bit of pressure off you. To somebody, a mother of 5 children, they were all going mad, and the husband was very rarely there, and when he was beating the shit out of her. That was brilliant. My child is safe. What if I was to tell you that a young boy was tied up over a coffee table, bound by his hands to his ankles, and noticed a candle burning, a thin one, but just thought it was a clerical candle. And while I was told that I'd burn in hell for all eternity, I was raped with the burning candle.
At the age of 12, Darren realised while watching a documentary about paedophilia that his relationship with his parish priest was not normal. From that day, he started seeing a child psychiatrist with only one fear, that the judge would not believe his testimony during the trial.
The lady gave me the doll and says to me, "Can you show me what happened?" And I said, "You want me to stick me cock and me penis inside the doll in front of you?" And she said, "What?" I said, "But you told me to show you. So you want me to, like, rip the doll and ride the doll?" She goes, "No, just show me." I said, "I don't understand." I said, "I'd have to do it." I said, "But you said it was wrong. So why do you want me to do something that's wrong? I don't understand that." So they were like, "That kind of makes sense. We didn't come across that before." So I said, "How about just ask me what happened?" So when I was asking, I had to keep asking them and taking the tissues at 12 and saying, "Are you okay?" Because I had traumatised them. To me, it was okay, because I was used to it.
Now a therapist, Darren is able to help other victims of abuse. A survivor of 5 suicide attempts himself, he's one of the 10% of victims who have brought their case to the authorities. In 2014, in an interview with the Italian newspaper La Repubblica, Pope Francis estimated the number of paedophile priests in the church, including bishops and cardinals, stood at 2%. But during an investigation conducted by Spotlight in Boston, Richard Sipe, a psychiatrist and retired priest, put that figure at 6%. According to Sipe, a paedophile inside the church abuses 250 victims during his lifetime. If correct for Ireland, this would amount to 280 paedophile priests and 70,000 victims. For the whole of Europe, it would mean 11,200 priests and 2.8 million victims. Colm O'Gorman, also a survivor and the director of Amnesty International Ireland, is fighting to repair the damage caused.
The way that the church conducted itself and the hypocrisy and the corruption at the heart of the church was revealed, and that led to people in Ireland rejecting the moral authority of the church. It led to an end of the political dominance of the Catholic Church here in Ireland. You know, for decades the Vatican called us liars. You know, they said we were telling lies, that we were fantasists, that this was an anti-Catholic agenda, that there was no cover-up. So now the Pope says there was a cover-up and we're meant to think he's great for acknowledging the truth. That's the minimum.
Marie Collins is a survivor who was abused within the church. She campaigns to prevent abuses and child pornography online. In 2014, she was added to the Vatican Commission by Pope Francis to protect minors and fight sexual abuse, but she resigned in 2017, tired of the Vatican's attitude.
The commission was experts outside the church, child protection experts from every area, brought together to advise the Pope, to bring expertise into the church from outside. And I went along with it because if the church was sincere in wanting to change, I thought that I should work to help. But I found after a couple of years that there was so much resistance in the Vatican to change. They were undermining the work of the Commission, they were resisting the work of the Commission, and really we were making recommendations, the Pope was approving them, and they were not being implemented, so it was a waste of time. The Curia, the civil service, the Pope's civil service, they saw us on the Commission as people coming in from the outside and interfering. The importance of child protection was ignored, really. It was more politics.
Pope Francis' recent decision to speak out about the scandals inside the church shows a desire for more transparency within the Vatican. Now, complaints and testimonies about sexual abuse are passed on to the civil authorities. In 2015, Ireland approved gay marriage by referendum. Then in 2018, the country revoked the 8th Amendment of its constitution and allowed abortion. 80% of the Irish population is Catholic. The same population that voted for these two reforms despite opposing directives of the Church. Such numbers highlight a paradox. Irish society remains culturally Catholic, but has distanced itself from the Church as an institution. It's a trend seen across Europe, the only continent where the Catholic community has fallen or stagnated in the past few years. Ireland has since tried to heal its wounds and improve the security of children. Arguably, the country had understood that the Church itself would not fix the problem. An important lesson that other countries like Australia, France, Poland and the United States might heed, where victims of sexual abuse inside the Church are only just being heard. All these voices bear witness to the extent of the cover-up and the much too frequent response of the Church, silence or even worse, complicity. In the US, the Theodore McCarrick case was a high-profile example. The Cardinal was finally defrocked in 2019 after historic sexual abuse allegations. A Vatican report pointed to failings by senior US clerics, including John Paul II, who let him rise through the ranks. More often, victims have found themselves having to turn to non-religious bodies to be heard, with the hope of one day rebuilding their lives.
On keeping my own faith, yes, I've kept my own faith and my beliefs, but the institution of the Church does not mean that much to me now. The institutional Church has really, I've lost all trust in it. I still have a relationship with God and I will still pray, and I still consider myself a Catholic.
It's a great question, do I have faith? I don't have religious faith, but I have I suppose, an even greater faith in humanity, in goodness, in life, in healing. An even greater faith in something that I know to be true, and that is that no matter how awful the harm done, no matter how awful the offence caused, that if we're prepared to own it, to face it with courage and with truth and with compassion and with love and with a commitment to moving forward, then healing and recovery and progress isn't just possible, it's inevitable. And that this I know, this I have unshakable faith in.
It's the living in silence which is the most awful thing. And for so many victims, it's been too much and they've taken their own lives, as we know. So we have to think about the countries where this is still happening and think of the children there.